money can reveal who people truly are. When wealth enters a relationship unexpectedly, it tests every assumption about love, trust, and partnership. What happened on Family Feud in April 2024 would expose a secret so shocking that it left Steve Harvey speechless and an entire studio questioning everything they thought they knew about marriage. This is a story about hidden wealth, the reasons people keep secrets from those they love, and the moment when a woman's protective instincts clashed with her husband's expectations. It reminds us that sometimes the biggest betrayals come not from what we hide, but from why we felt we had to hide it in the first place. If you believe that trust is built on more than just disclosure, and that everyone has the right to protect themselves, please hit that like button and subscribe to our channel. We share stories that challenge our assumptions about relationships and reveal the complex truths about money, power, and love. Your support helps us continue bringing these thought-provoking moments to viewers everywhere. The Richardson family from Seattle, Washington stood on the Family Feud stage representing what appeared to be an average middle-class family. 44-year-old Monica Richardson worked as a public school teacher, a profession she had dedicated herself to for over 20 years. She taught 5th grade at an elementary school in a diverse neighborhood, known among parents and colleagues as patient, creative, and deeply committed to her students. Her salary was modest, typical for educators in public schools, and she lived within those means. Her husband, James Richardson, was 46 years old and worked as a regional manager for a logistics company. He earned a decent salary that, combined with Monica's teaching income, allowed them to live comfortably in a modest home in the suburbs. They had been married for 16 years and had 2 children, both teenagers who were competing on the show alongside their parents. To anyone observing the Richardson family, they seemed financially stable but unremarkable. They drove practical cars, took occasional vacations, and lived in a nice but not extravagant neighborhood. James often mentioned their budget constraints, talking about saving for the kids' college education and planning for retirement. Monica would nod along, contributing to conversations about being careful with money and making smart financial choices. But Monica Richardson was hiding a secret that would shock everyone who knew her. She was worth over $2 million, wealth that James knew absolutely nothing about. The money had come from an inheritance she received 7 years earlier when her maternal grandmother passed away. Her grandmother had been a savvy investor who lived modestly but accumulated significant wealth over her lifetime through careful stock market investments and real estate holdings. When the inheritance came through, Monica had been married to James for 9 years. By that point, she had already recognized troubling patterns in her husband's relationship with money and control. James had strong opinions about how their finances should be managed, insisting that he handle all major financial decisions because he understood money better than Monica did. He would question her purchases, even small ones she made with her own paycheck, and make her account for how she spent money she had earned. More concerning was what Monica had observed about how James treated people he perceived as having less money or status than himself. He was dismissive of service workers, condescending toward friends who earned less than he did, and made frequent comments about people being poor or not managing their money properly. Monica had also noticed how he changed his behavior around people with wealth, becoming almost obsequious and constantly trying to impress them. When Monica's grandmother passed away and left her the substantial inheritance, Monica had made a calculated decision not to tell James about it. She opened a separate bank account at a different institution, put the money in conservative investments, and told absolutely no one except her financial advisor and attorney. Not James, not her children, not even her closest friends. The secret was hers alone. Her reasons were complex and had evolved over the 7 years she had kept the secret. Initially, she told herself she was protecting the money for her children's future, making sure they would have educational opportunities and financial security regardless of what happened in her marriage. But it was also about protecting herself. She had seen too many stories of women who lost financial independence in divorces or who were controlled through money by their partners. Having this nest egg that James did not know about gave Monica a sense of security and autonomy she had never felt before. There was another reason too, one that Monica was less comfortable acknowledging. She did not trust what would happen to their marriage if James knew she had money. Would he quit his job and expect her to support them? Would he make financial demands? Would he treat her differently, either better or worse? The not knowing terrified her, so she kept the secret year after year, telling herself she would reveal it when the time was right, though that time never seemed to come. The secret had not been easy to maintain. Monica had to be careful about her purchases, making sure nothing seemed beyond what a public school teacher could afford. When her car broke down and needed expensive repairs, she had used money from the inheritance, but told James she had borrowed from her sister. When their daughter needed dental work that insurance did not cover, Monica paid for it from her hidden account, but told James the dentist had given them a payment plan. The lying bothered Monica more than the secrecy itself. She hated being dishonest with James, hated the deception required to maintain the facade of financial struggle when she actually had substantial resources. But every time she considered telling him, she would remember something that reinforced her decision to keep quiet. A comment James made about a friend's wife who had family money and how she thought she was better than everyone. The way he had reacted when Monica suggested going back to school, questioning why she would waste money on more education when she was just a teacher. The control he exerted over their joint finances while claiming it was for their own good. Monica's children were approaching college age, and she had been planning to use the inheritance to pay for their education without student loans. She had envisioned telling James when the first tuition bill came, saying she had received a windfall or scholarship money or something. She had not worked out the exact story yet, but she knew she could not keep the secret much longer as major expenses loomed. The Family Feud appearance had been arranged by their daughter as a fun family activity. Monica had agreed reluctantly, knowing that game shows sometimes asked personal questions that could lead to unexpected revelations. But she had convinced herself that she could navigate any question carefully and that the secret would remain safe. She had become skilled at deception over 7 years after all. What Monica did not anticipate was that a simple game show question would put her in a position where she had to choose between continuing the lie and finally speaking the truth she had been hiding for so long. Sometimes secrets have a way of demanding to be told. Regardless of whether we are the Family Feud, taping began with the standard energy and excitement. The Richardson family competed against another family from the Pacific Northwest, and both teams were showing good competitive spirit. Steve Harvey conducted his usual charming interviews, asking each family member about their backgrounds and what brought them to the show. When Steve spoke with Monica, she mentioned her work as a 5th-grade teacher. Steve, who always showed great appreciation for educators, spoke warmly about the importance of teachers and asked how long she had been teaching. Monica answered that it had been over 20 years, and Steve commented on her dedication to a profession that was so important but often undervalued financially. James chimed in at this point, making a comment that Monica found embarrassing. "Yeah, Steve, we definitely know about teachers not getting paid enough. We live on a pretty tight budget with Monica's salary and mine, but we make it work." Monica smiled tightly, as she always did when James made comments about their finances publicly. Steve nodded sympathetically, and the conversation moved on to the other family members. The game progressed through several rounds with both families performing well. The Richardson family was ahead going into the final rounds, and the energy was positive and competitive. Then came the question that would shatter Monica's carefully maintained secret. It was one of those Family Feud questions designed to elicit humorous or revealing answers about relationships and secrets. Steve read the question with his typical animated delivery, expecting entertaining responses. Name something people hide from their spouse. It was Monica's turn at the buzzer. The question hung in the air, and in that moment, something shifted inside Monica. She had been living with this enormous secret for 7 years, carrying the weight of it alone, navigating the constant deception and fear of discovery. And suddenly, inexplicably, she was tired of it. Tired of lying, Tired of pretending, tired of the burden. Monica buzzed in, her mouth opened, and the answer that came out was not the safe, generic response she should have given. Instead, she spoke a truth that had been locked inside her for 7 years. Money. People hide money from their spouse. It was the number one answer. The board revealed it with the satisfying ding, and the audience applauded. It was a good answer, obviously correct. But Steve, always perceptive about the emotional undertones in responses, noticed something in Monica's expression and tone. There was weight behind that answer, something personal. Steve, being Steve, decided to engage with it. He walked over to Monica with his characteristic swagger and asked a follow-up question that was meant to be light and entertaining. Monica, you said people hide money from their spouse. That is the number one answer. Now, I got to ask you, are you speaking from experience here? You hiding money from this man? Steve was joking, expecting a laugh and a playful denial. The audience was already chuckling, ready for Monica to say something funny about hiding $20 for emergency coffee money. But Monica did not laugh. She stood there, and in that moment, 7 years of secrets crashed down on her. She looked at James, who was smiling, completely unaware of what was about to happen. She looked at Steve's expectant face. She looked at the cameras that were broadcasting to millions. And Monica made a decision that would change everything. Yes, Mr. Harvey, I am hiding money from my husband. About $2 million that he does not know I have. The studio fell into absolute silence. It was the kind of silence that happens when something so unexpected occurs that people need time to process whether they heard correctly. Steve Harvey's expression went through several rapid changes: confusion, shock, disbelief, and then a dawning understanding that something very serious had just been revealed. James's face had gone completely pale. He was staring at Monica as if she had suddenly become a stranger. His mouth opened and closed, but no sound came out. The Richardson children looked between their parents with expressions of shock and confusion. Steve held up his hand to signal the producers. Wait. Hold on. Stop the cameras. We need to stop right now. The cameras stopped rolling. The audience sat in stunned silence. Steve walked over to where Monica and James were standing, and his expression had shifted from entertainer to someone genuinely concerned about the situation unfolding in front of him. Mom, did you just say you have $2 million that your husband does not know about? Monica nodded, tears beginning to stream down her face. Yes. I inherited it from my grandmother 7 years ago. I never told James about it. James found his voice, though it came out as almost a shout. $2 million. You have had $2 million for 7 years, and you never told me. While I have been working and stressing about bills and college tuition and retirement, while you have been pretending we needed to budget and save. Steve raised his hand gently. Sir, I understand you are shocked and upset, but we need to handle this carefully. This is a very serious situation, and we are going to deal with it properly. He turned to the producers. I need you to clear the studio. Get the audience out quietly and respectfully. Give this family privacy. This is not entertainment anymore. This is real life, and they need space to process this. As the audience was ushered out and the studio cleared, Steve stayed with the Richardson family. He looked at Monica with an expression that mixed understanding with concern. Monica, why did you just reveal this secret now, on national television, instead of telling your husband privately? Monica struggled to answer through her tears. I do not know. I have been carrying this secret for so long, and when you asked that question, something just broke inside me. I am tired of lying. I am tired of hiding. I am tired of being afraid of what would happen if he knew. James interrupted, his voice shaking with anger and hurt. Afraid of what would happen if I knew. What did you think I would do? Did you think I would hurt you? Steal from you? What kind of person do you think I am? Monica looked at her husband, and when she spoke, it was clear she had been thinking about this answer for 7 years. I was afraid you would change. I was afraid you would treat me differently. I was afraid you would want to control the money the way you control everything else in our lives. I was afraid you would quit your job and expect me to support us. I was afraid of losing myself. Steve Harvey stood between Monica and James, recognizing that he was witnessing the implosion of a marriage in real time. He had dealt with many emotional moments on his show, but this was different. This was about money, trust, power, and control in ways that went far deeper than a simple secret. He addressed James first. "Sir, I need you to hear me on something. I understand you feel betrayed right now. Your wife kept a very significant secret from you for 7 years. That is a major breach of trust. But before we get into your anger and hurt, I need you to ask yourself a question. Why did she feel she needed to hide this from you?" James started to protest, but Steve held up his hand. "Listen to me. Your wife just said she was afraid you would control the money, that you control everything else in your lives. She said she was afraid of losing herself. Those are serious statements. Before you get defensive, before you make this all about her lying to you, you need to consider what she is telling you about the dynamics in your marriage." Monica spoke up, her voice stronger now that the secret was out. "James, you question every purchase I make. You make me account for money I earn from my own job. You make all the financial decisions and tell me I do not understand money well enough to be involved. You talk down to people who have less money than you, and you act completely different around people who have more. I watched you for 9 years before I got this inheritance, and I knew if you found out, everything would change." She continued, tears still flowing but her voice steady. "And you know what is sad? I was right to be afraid. Because the first thing you said, when you found out, was anger that I did not tell you, not curiosity about why I felt I could not tell you, not concern about what I have been going through carrying this secret, just anger that you did not have access to money you did not earn." James looked shocked by this characterization. "That is not fair, Monica. I have worked hard to support our family. I have made sacrifices, and you have been lying to me for 7 years while I stressed about money we apparently did not even need to worry about." Steve interjected. "You are both right and you are both wrong. Monica, hiding $2 million from your husband for 7 years is a massive deception. Marriage is supposed to be built on trust, and you violated that trust in a significant way. What you did was wrong." He turned to James. "But sir, the fact that your wife felt she needed to hide this tells us something important about your marriage. People do not hide money from partners they trust and feel safe with. They hide money from partners they fear will control them or take advantage of them. The question you need to ask yourself is why your wife of 16 years did not feel safe telling you about this inheritance." Steve addressed them both. "Here is what I see happening here. You have a marriage where trust is broken on both sides. Monica does not trust James to handle knowledge of her wealth without trying to control it or her. James does not trust Monica to be honest with him about major life circumstances. That is not a foundation for a healthy relationship." One of the Richardson children, their 16-year-old daughter, spoke up. She had been quiet until this point, processing the revelation that her family was apparently wealthy, and that her parents had major issues she had not fully understood. "I think I understand why Mom did not tell Dad. I have watched how Dad is with money my whole life. He makes Mom feel stupid about finances. He decides everything, and I have heard him talk about people who have family money, how he thinks they are entitled or spoiled. Mom probably thought he would treat her the same way if he knew about her inheritance." James looked at his daughter with hurt and surprise. "You think I would treat your mother badly?" His daughter responded honestly. "Dad, you already treat her like she does not know anything about money. You already make all the decisions and expect her to just go along with them. I love you, but yeah, I can see why Mom was scared to tell you." Steve made a decision about how to proceed. He announced that this family needed professional help to work through what had been revealed, and that the episode would not air in its current form. He connected them with a family therapist who specialized in financial issues and power dynamics in marriages. Before they left the studio that day, Steve spoke to them one final time. "What happened here today is going to change your family one way or another. You can let it destroy your marriage, or you can use it as an opportunity to build something more honest and equal. But that is only going to work if both of you are willing to look at your own contributions to this situation. Monica, you need to take responsibility for the deception. James, you need to take responsibility for creating an environment where your wife felt deception was necessary. The Family Feud episode featuring the Richardson family never aired in its original form. The production company, understanding the gravity and privacy concerns of what had been revealed, decided that some moments were too personal and potentially damaging to broadcast. However, word of what had happened during the taping spread through various channels, and the broad strokes of the story became known in media circles and online forums. For Monica and James Richardson, the revelation triggered an immediate crisis in their marriage. James moved out of their home temporarily to process his feelings of betrayal and anger. Monica, freed from the burden of her secret, but facing the consequences of her deception, struggled with guilt and also relief. Their children stayed with Monica, but maintained contact with both parents as the situation unfolded. True to Steve Harvey's recommendation, both Monica and James began intensive therapy. They started with individual counseling to address their own issues before attempting couples therapy together. Monica worked with her therapist to understand why she had felt the need to maintain such a significant deception and to examine her fears about financial security and autonomy. She came to recognize that while her concerns about James's controlling behavior were valid, her response of hiding millions of dollars was neither healthy nor sustainable. James worked through his feelings of betrayal while also being challenged by his therapist to examine his own behavior and attitudes about money and control. It was difficult work that forced him to confront aspects of himself he had been avoiding. He had to acknowledge that he had been controlling about finances in ways he had rationalized as responsible management. He had to recognize that his attitudes about wealth and people who had money were judgmental and inconsistent. Most painfully, he had to accept that his wife had been afraid of him, not physically, but afraid of how he would react and what he would demand. 6 months after the Family Feud revelation, Monica and James were still separated but attending couples counseling together. They were working through the fundamental issues that the secret had exposed. One of the key realizations in therapy was that the $2 million was not really the issue. The issue was power, control, trust, and whether they could build an equal partnership. Monica made a decision with the guidance of her therapist and financial advisor. She put the inheritance money into a trust that would benefit her children's education and future, with clear legal protections that prevented anyone, including James, from accessing or controlling those funds. She did this not to punish James, but to protect what she had been trying to protect all along: the financial security and opportunities for her children. James struggled with this decision, feeling that it indicated Monica still did not trust him. But his therapist helped him understand that trust had to be rebuilt through actions over time, not demanded immediately. If he wanted Monica to trust him with knowledge of her financial resources, he needed to demonstrate that he could respect her autonomy and not try to control decisions that were hers to make. 1 year after the revelation, Monica and James agreed to participate in a podcast interview about financial secrets in marriage. They spoke honestly about what had happened, though they requested anonymity and did not reference the Family Feud taping specifically. Their conversation was remarkably honest about the complexity of their situation. Monica acknowledged that hiding the money had been wrong and that she could have handled the situation differently. She could have told James about the inheritance while setting clear boundaries about how it would be managed. She could have insisted on couples counseling years earlier to address the power dynamics that made her feel unsafe. Instead, she had chosen deception, and that choice had damaged their marriage significantly. James acknowledged that he had been controlling and that his attitudes about money and worth had been problematic. He admitted that he had tied his identity to being the primary breadwinner and decision-maker, and when Monica's inheritance threatened that identity, his first reaction had been anger rather than self-reflection. He spoke about the work he was doing to separate his sense of masculine worth from financial dominance. When asked if they were still together, they gave a complicated answer. They were technically still married but living separately and taking things slowly. They had decided not to rush toward either reconciliation or divorce, instead giving themselves space to figure out if they could build a different kind of marriage than the one they had before. The podcast episode resonated deeply with listeners. It sparked conversations about financial transparency in marriages, about when secrets might be protective versus destructive, and about the gendered dynamics of money and power in relationships. Financial advisors and marriage counselors began discussing the Richardson case as an example of how financial secrets often reveal deeper relationship issues. 2 years after the initial revelation, Monica and James had made a decision about their marriage. They chose to stay together, but their marriage looked fundamentally different than it had before. They maintained separate finances with clear boundaries. James no longer questioned Monica's spending or financial decisions. They made major household decisions together with both having equal say. They had regular check-ins with their therapist to address issues before they became crises. Most importantly, they had established a different foundation built on honesty about their needs and fears. Monica could express when she felt controlled without being dismissed. James could express his needs and insecurities without trying to dominate. It was not perfect, and it required constant work, but it was more authentic than what they had before. The money itself, the $2 million that had been the catalyst for everything, remained in trust for the children. Monica used some investment earnings to pay for her daughter's college expenses, which allowed their daughter to attend her dream school without debt. She planned to do the same for their son when his time came. But the principle remained protected and separate, a financial security blanket that Monica was no longer ashamed of maintaining. 3 years after the Family Feud incident, Monica wrote an article for a women's finance magazine about her experience. She titled it "The Secret I Kept and What It Cost." In it, she discussed the complex reasons women hide money from partners, the legitimate fears about control and abuse that motivate such secrecy, but also the damage that deception causes even when motivations are understandable. Monica's article generated intense discussion. Some readers supported her decision to hide the money, seeing it as necessary self-protection. Others criticized her for not trusting her husband or giving him a chance to prove he could handle the knowledge responsibly. The diversity of responses illustrated that there were no easy answers when it came to money, marriage, and trust. Financial professionals began using the Richardson case in discussions about prenuptial agreements, separate accounts in marriage, and financial autonomy within partnerships. They pointed out that clear agreements and boundaries around money, established at the beginning of relationships or when circumstances changed, could prevent the kind of crisis the Richardsons experienced. The story also sparked conversations among therapists about financial infidelity as a concept. Was hiding money from a spouse equivalent to sexual infidelity? Some argued yes, that it was a fundamental betrayal of trust. Others argued that it was different, particularly when the secrecy was motivated by legitimate concerns about safety or autonomy, rather than desire to deceive for personal gain. Steve Harvey, though he never publicly discussed the specific Richardson case due to confidentiality, spoke more generally in interviews about financial secrets in marriages. He emphasized that healthy relationships required both transparency and respect for individual autonomy. He noted that when someone felt they needed to hide significant information from their partner, it usually indicated deeper problems in the relationship that needed to be addressed. 5 years after the revelation, the Richardson children, now young adults, reflected on how the incident had affected them. Their daughter spoke about how watching her parents work through the crisis had actually taught her valuable lessons about relationships, money, and honesty. She had learned that secrets create distance, that money can be a tool for control, and that real partnership requires both people to feel safe and respected. The legacy of Monica Richardson's $2 million secret was not a simple morality tale with clear heroes and villains. It was a complex story about fear, control, trust, and the difficult work of building equitable partnerships. It reminded people that financial decisions in relationships are never just about money but about power, safety, and identity. The question that lingered for many who heard the story was this: if you felt you needed to hide significant wealth from your spouse, what did that say about your marriage? And if your partner felt they could not trust you with information about their financial resources, what did that say about how you had been treating them? These were uncomfortable questions without easy answers, but they were worth asking. If this story made you think about trust, money, and power in relationships, please take a moment to like this video and subscribe to our channel. We share stories that challenge our assumptions and reveal the complex truths about love, marriage, and partnership. Your support helps us continue bringing these thought-provoking narratives to viewers everywhere. Remember, Monica and James's lesson: secrets in marriage, especially about money, usually indicate deeper issues about trust, control, and safety. If you feel you need to hide significant information from your partner, examine why. And if your partner is hiding things from you, ask yourself what in your behavior might have made them feel that secrecy was necessary. Real partnership requires both transparency and respect for autonomy. The challenge is building relationships where both can exist together,